Hello and welcome to the SFCA podcast. Our goal is to inspire travel. We want to expose you to what Miami and South Florida has to offer. From Key Biscayne to Coconut Grove, South Beach to Calle Ocho and everywhere in between. Miami is a vibrant city and offers a wide array of popular attractions and venues. Come join us. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's exactly 10 o'clock on a marvelous Monday. I hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl yesterday. It was quite entertaining. The seventh longest Super Bowl in NFL history. I swore for a minute there I thought the 49ers would finally have it, but regrettably, the champions once again ruled for the third consecutive time. We're just waiting for some more people to get on. While I'm waiting, I just want everybody to test your chat because that's how you're going to win your prizes. We have 3 cash prizes to give away, $50, $50, and $50. Good morning, Sergio. Question for everyone, and this is a yes or no question. I'm curious. Do you go out on Valentine's Day? Not if you host Valentine's and you have do, for your significant other, have a beautiful dinner, so on and so forth. But do you actually go to a restaurant on Valentine's Day? I'm curious to see what people say. Let's see. No with exclamation points. No, 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 no. Okay, the no's have it so far. We have a couple of yeses. Excellent. Samantha, you are a brave soul. Every experience I've had has been the worst. Why not? I mean, you've got everybody in the restaurant, and it's kind of hard to maintain a good presence when you're bombarded with so many people. Thank you very much. Let's see, and the no's continue. No, definitely the no's have it. Exactly. You're in boat show mode. Thank you, Elba. Boat show's right around the corner. We have the Super Bowl, we have boat show, and we have Valentine's all in one week. Busy week. So far, we've got 2-3 yeses. Everybody else is a no. I hope the restaurants still stay in business. Oh, we have another yes. Curb is a yes. Good for you. You're a brave soul. Maybe you'll go if they're empty. Rachel, I wonder if there are anybody that are empty because there's a lot of people out there, and it's very popular. I generally do it for I do usually the before, not after, because after it looks like an afterthought. Edwin is a yes. Excellent. All right. Our numbers are increasing, so let me begin. Last night was a nail biter, the 7th longest Super Bowl game in NFL history with the 49ers almost making it. Congrats to KC for a well-deserved 3rd Super Bowl win in their history. Spring is almost here. Are you loving the cool temps? We're going to drop to about 50 plus tomorrow just for a day or so, but then it's going to ramp back up to warm weather. Thank you for joining us. We truly appreciate your continued support on this, our 45th call. A special recognition to all the sales teams, hotel managers, and support staff that are on the call. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome. On this call, we will share facts, figures, and stats in Florida tourism. We also have some entertaining and informative facts that we hope you'll enjoy. I want to ensure that everyone's familiar with the chat feature. I assume you are because you are responding. This is how we will win you'll win the prizes. If you do have a question for any of the panelists or myself, by all means, use the chat feature. We constantly monitor it. If you want to use the Q&A feature, you can as well. Please don't respond to the trivia question on the Q&A because we're not monitoring that. We're looking at the chat. All you have to do is focus on the presentation. I've asked each presenter to either present a question based on the presentation or a general trivia question. The first to win wins a prize. Now you will be excluded from future prizes. So if you win on the first time around, you'll be disqualified the second or third, just to give everybody an ample opportunity. The panel is what it is. Andrew Wobin-Smith and Ceci Velasco are back on deck. They've been with us for the longest. All the information on South Beach and Greater Miami tourism is here for you for the taking and absorption. We also have special guest today, Edwin Shepard, brand and marketing manager, and Curb Gardner, creative director and chief strategist of the historic Hampton House. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, gentlemen. Edwin, welcome aboard. How are you this morning?
I am fantastic. How are you, Miguel? Thank you for having me
on.
Good.
Go ahead and start while I cue you up and get your presentation ready to go for everyone to see. And you are set, my dear friend.
All right. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of being on with myself and Mr. Gardner. My name is Edwin Shepard, once again, the brand manager, lead docent at the historic Hampton House, which was formerly a Green Book Motel back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. It opened roughly in July of 1954, and it would cater to many, many greats and legends that would stay there at the Hampton House. Opened originally as the Booker Terrace and would become the Hampton House in 1961. It currently operates as a museum, cultural and arts center right now. So please, please, please take the opportunity to pay us a visit so we can give you wonderful tours and let you know of all the amazing things that we have going on. Greats like Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke, Aretha Franklin, Jim Brown, and many other greats have stayed here. Martin Luther King did a practice of his I Have a Dream speech prior to his march on Washington, D.C. Actually spoke on minimum wage in Miami, which was a $1.25 an hour when he did a press conference at the Hampton House in 1966 on the 14th of April. So I'm just really excited to be on and to give a lot of this history. You can go next. Next one.
Edwin?
Yes, no, you can. Yes, okay. So with that being said, I would like to take the opportunity of introducing Mr. Curb Gardner. He is our chief strategist and also our creative director at the Hampton House. He's going to share with you of all the amazing things that we're doing at the Hampton House and more. So Curb, you have the floor, and pleasure to have you on with me.
Awesome. Thank you, Edwin. Good morning, everyone. If you go back to the last screen, you'll see, which is interesting, you'll see in the background of Martin Luther King, he was there at the Hampton House. You can see the backdrop. And we're located in Brownsville. If you see that little square box right over his shoulder, it's 4200 27th Avenue. And that picture was done over 60 years ago. As Edwin mentioned, we have, you can go to the next screen. As Edwin mentioned, over the last couple of years, the institution has redirected itself from being what was initially a culture center into a museum of cultures and art. We are very lucky to have to sort of ignite that. The once play that was done at the Colony Theater in Miami Beach, called One Night in Miami, was redone in 2020 as an Academy Award nominated film, One Night in Miami, that really talks about the relationship between Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Sam Cooke, and Malcolm X. So as we formulated and sort of changed the institution, our mission is really as a museum to bridge social, racial, cultural, religious, and gender divide. And that means that as it was once founded, being a safe place for individuals to come across, was a safe place for people to stay in Miami, whether you were traveling from north to south, or whether or not you were a celebrity and performing at the Fontainebleau, i.e. be it an Ella Fitzgerald, a Nat King Cole, a Sam Cooke, Josephine Baker, James Brown, Marvin Gaye. All these performers could perform at the Fontainebleau. However, they had to enter through the kitchen. They could perform on stage, and then they could not stay at the hotel. So the place that they could stay, the most luxurious place that their dollar would buy, that was not a rooming house, was the historic Hampton House. And back in that time, if you were Black, Jewish, or Latin, you could not own, or brown of any sort, you could not own property on Miami Beach. You could only work there. And then that therein lies, you had to, for Black people in the evening, you would have to go over town. And that's where you get the term overtown for you. So you couldn't stay in Miami Beach, you'd have to go over town. So it is actually a mid-century modern building. It's been restored for both a museum on the lower level floor with historical aspects, and then now we have taken the upstairs space It made it gallery space. You can go to the next slide. We've made it gallery space. And in making that gallery space, we were able to accommodate our first inaugural exhibition for Art Basel, which is called Gimme Shelter. So historically, and I'll let everyone switch over to that. We've actually have housed, go back to the past slide. Historically, we've actually have housed a bebop to hip hop music series context where we've had Shaka Khan there, we've had Eric Benet there. We're working on the Marleys and different groups that come through. Right now we have, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you'll see Amy Winehouse and one of the most exciting muralists in the world. He's on all continents. His name is Eduardo Kober. You probably have seen his work as an exhibition going on in the museum today. And then you'll also get, when you visit the Hampton House, both the historical context, as you can see, the room where Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali celebrated the night that he won heavyweight championship of the world. And that 60th anniversary takes place in a couple weeks on March 25th. Here in Miami, that celebration takes place. And then you'll have Art Basel, which that exhibition has been extended. You can go to the next slide, which features the actual collection of renowned art collector Beth Rudin DeWoody. She has a $1 billion art collection, and we opened that exhibition during Art Basel. And notably, we have been known that it was the best art exhibition during Art Basel per New York Times, per Vogue magazine, per Forbes magazine. The press was outstanding, and I don't know if anybody's on the call have been or either was there for our opening night celebration, but it's still being talked about around town. Edwin, you can go now.
Okay. Yeah. So to speak more on the history of the Hampton House, just to give a little throwback of it, the motel actually had a total of 50 rooms. The rooms at that time during the 60s went for a total of $29 for single beds and $48 for suites. We actually have 2 rooms that we show. It is the room of the greatest Muhammad Ali, which is one of the suites. And we also have Martin Luther King's room that we show, which is towards the corner of the room. So when you enter the Hampton House, it gives you a very nostalgic feel. It takes you back into the 60s, the elegance of what those individuals and those legends were able to experience while there. It came with a pool, with a diving board. So it was definitely the creme de la creme of motels during that time of segregation. There was a total of 15 Green Book locations in Miami, and the Hampton House is the only one left standing today. It's very, very important to swing by and to be able to see this building, to see this history, and just to be able to walk the hallways of those legends that actually walked through there and was able to experience such a wonderful time at such a, what we would say, a different time in America than in the 60s, the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Listed as a Green Book, for those who are not familiar with the Green Book was utilized as pretty much a guide for Blacks and people of color to be able to find out what venues would allow them to either stay, or whether it be gas stations, barbershops, beauty salons, and so on. So just a wonderful opportunity for you guys to swing by and see. You can go to the next slide, and I'll allow Curb to speak on Soul Sundays.
Coming up, we're celebrating now America's history during Black History Month. And 2 of the programs that we have, in addition to the extension of the Gimme Shelter exhibition, that's there. We're open on Wednesday through Sunday. You can catch that exhibition. But on Sunday the 18th and on Sunday the 25th, we have this amazing Soul Sunday brunch, which 2 programs is 11:30. And then there's a 2 o'clock, and we have DJ There'll be some jazz and gospel music for the first program, and then the second program, there's award-winning DJ MOS. He is DJs for the Oscars and for the Grammys, etc. He's actually going to be our guest DJ during that time. So that's Soul Sunday Brunch. We have noted celebrity chef, Chef Gernard Wells, who's was on Good Morning America last week, and has a television show that he does, a cooking show. So he'll be our guest chef for that. And also local chef Martin Rodrigue. So Chef Martin. That's Soul Sunday. So you guys, please let your guests know. It will be a wonderful experience. I'm going to piggyback to going back to our exhibition and our party for Art Basel. They raved about the food. These are the same two chefs, so you'll get a great bottomless brunch. The cost of that is at $85 a person. So let your guests know they can come over for an outstanding experience of both art and culture and culinary. If you go to the next slide, again, we talked earlier about Eduardo Cobra. So inside that exhibition, Cobra is, as I said, the most respected muralist in the world. He's the most popular. He's on 5 continents. That's the next slide. If you go to the next slide, I think. Am I saying that? Yeah, slide number 7. No, go back. I'm sorry. I'm on. Yes, Eduardo Cobra. So his exhibition will also be up. It will end March 1st as well. And I think he did a special exhibition and curated some art or painted some art specifically of the icons that have stayed at the historic Hampton House. And that's also on display. If you go to the next slide, you will see one of the rooms that we have that the exhibition is. The piece to the left is Howard Dina Pindell. She's a fantastic artist. And the quilt on the right is Sanford Bigger. So you'll see the space is a very interesting space. And people have been moved by that, so much so that we've had some guests that have come in internationally from all over the world and locally, and they just pause, and we've actually seen people cry in the space. So it's really quite an interesting exhibition for you to invite your guests to, or either you come yourself. You can go next slide. Our coming up in April is our Sounds of Freedom exhibition. That is an exhibition that's done specifically on jazz. We open that during the end of Jazz Music Month, which is in April. It will be an exhibition basically featuring the photographs. It's a photojournal exhibition and some art by Lenora Anthony, and photographs by Anthony Poillo. Anthony Poillo is an Italian artist, and he basically photographed a lot of the amazing jazz artists that wrote over to his father, because his father was owned a nightclub and also was a promoter throughout Europe, where these artists, jazz artists like greats, Ella Fitzgerald, as I mentioned, Satchmo, Louis Armstrong, they would write over to Italy and France and say, listen, our conditions and our pay is so bad here in the United States. Can we come over and pay and play? And there they would be able to stay at the Eden Rock, the best hotels in Paris, and stay in the best suites, and also would be in the lobbies like normal people. So that exhibition is coming up. It's a beautiful exhibition. It's called Sounds of Freedom. And go next slide. Edwin?
So we have our golf tournament that we have. It's called Birdies.
Birdies to Eagles. Golf
Birdies to Eagles. There we go. And we just had that recently, and we also used to have golf tournaments. There used to be the North and South golf tournaments at the Hampton House. Back in its day, Bob Hayes was actually one of the athletes who actually was sponsored and partnered with the golf tournament, the North and South golf golf tournament. Those golf tournaments back in those days in the 60s were at the Palmetto Golf Course and the Westview Golf Course, which no longer exists. But we wanted to bring a lot of events forward that we used to have back in the Hampton House old days and bring some of those back with the Birdies the Eagle. And so I'll let Curb speak more on that before closing.
Yes. Well, our Birdies the Eagle golf tournament is coming up. It's sponsored by McAllen and Chase Bank. It's at the Miami Beach Golf Course, and we'll send out some information to you guys on it. But it's also sponsored by the LPGA. And basically what we've done is it's a fundraiser and outreach, because we get these young kids who teach them golf. They're in a golf teaching program. They're underserved kids. And then we do this golf tournament around there. We pair those with LPGA greats. And it's a wonderful tournament. Like I said, sponsored by McAllen, the LPGA. So we can get information out to you as soon as that program is available. And that will be in April as well.
All right, last slide. So in closing, join us, check in and give the day. I would like to let everyone know that we are located at 4240 Northwest 27th Avenue in Miami. We are approximately 4 minutes from Miami International Airport, right next to the 112 highway. We are open for tours from Wednesday through Sundays. We do have event space as well. So we hope you guys are able to come by and check us out and get this amazing history and just learn about your history, Miami's history. We have a saying at the Hampton House that it's not, we're celebrating American history on Black History Month. Did I say that correct, Curb? Is that correct?
Yeah, you're celebrating America's history during Black History Month.
Yeah, exactly.
Miami's history during Black History Month.
There we go. Fantastic.
So it is. I think if you have any of your guests are interested in the museums, and that you're sending them to museums, like I said, there are people that are coming from all over the world that are checking the exhibition out. It is really quite spectacular. You can go and read about it in, like I said, New York Times, Forbes, etc. But it was voted one of the best, or the best exhibition during Basel. We extended it first through January, and then the Whitney Museum in New York asked us if we could extend it beyond that. So we're very delighted to the fact that we, on our first exhibition out, we were part of our Basel VIP. And we also were able to put this out. We're already planning for 2024. So check this one out if you can. It's called Gimme Shelter, and we're up through the 28th of this month.
All right. And that's it. Thank you so much for having us. We appreciate it.
A few questions. What are the hours of the museum, and what is the cost to go, and what can one expect? What, if you can walk us through what they would get for
the hours of the museum is from 11 to 4. Our tour times is 11 a.m., 1 p.m., and 4 p.m. Through Wednesday through Saturdays, and then it's 11, 1, and 3 on Sundays. And basically what they can expect when they walk into the building is they can expect to journey back in time, basically, because as soon as they walk in, they're in the lobby space. It looks like a typical lobby of any hotel. There's a front desk, and they would just come in and they would be greeted by myself or another one of our docents to give them the exact tour. The tour runs about an hour, and then the exhibition, which we still have up, would kind of be like that extra bonus that they would be able to experience. So that's what they would experience right now if they happen to pay us a visit.
Excellent. And just a little heads up to everyone on the call. In speaking with Kurt and Edwin, we are planning an event there at the end of this month. And hopefully you'll be able to make it. I will send you a link to register, and it will be a abbreviated tour, I believe, not the full hour, probably about 30-40 minutes.
Yes.
And then you'll do the presentation in the auditorium. So if you're as excited about history as I am, this is definitely a place you want to go to. They have done an amazing job of recreating the past, and it gives you literally you'll get goosebumps watching this because you're stepping back into history. Things that you've read about in history books, probably read about it in school, you'll actually be living through. So definitely a must do on your list if you're into history, if you're into museums. It'll be at the end of this month. More information to follow. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your presentation.
Thank you.
We will share this with everyone on the post show notes. And now we progress on to our stats and figures on South Florida tourism. Mr. Andrew Robinsmith is back from the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. Welcome back, Andrew. We missed you last month. Expedia did a good job, but not as good as you, my friend. So
I don't know that.
Share your screen and you are on.
Right. Well, it's great to be back. In a second here. Everybody see my screen?
We see it.
All right. Very good. Let me try that. Wait a second. I'm gonna hide all these bars. All right. Well, hey, listen. Thank you. It's great to be back.
Andrew, real quick, before you stop, I forgot to ask a trivia question. I don't want to go back after that. Gentlemen, do you have a trivia question to ask real quick, and then we'll have Andrew start?
Yes, I have a trivia question. The question is, what famous hotel opened the same year as the Booker Terrace Motel and Apartments in Miami?
Very good question. Let's see if anyone gets it correct. Eden Rock.
Jacob.
Jacob, the Fontainebleau. Jacob, congratulations. Got a $50 gas card. Please reach out to me via email to the email that's on our file, and we'll get it to you immediately. Congratulations. Yeah, the Eden Rock and the Fontainebleau opened up more or less the same exact time. Another fun fact, the opening act for the Eden Rock was Harry Belafonte. So that's interesting. Thank you very much, Edwin. Congratulations, Jacob. My apologies, Andrew. Proceed.
All right. Well, hey, great. Thank you. Great to hear some new news about some of the great attractions that we have here in Miami. So again, thank you. I needed a month to regroup. It's a busy time of year and happy to be back. So some great updates. I think, as you folks know, every month I share some of the same things and I try to shake it up with some other things. And of course, try to find things that are new, things that are recent that I can share with you. And we did have some information coming over the weekend, and I was happy to put that into our deck. You will be seeing some of this stuff before anybody else. So there you go. So I don't want to disappoint you, but let's start out here. This came from a presentation that I heard a couple of weeks ago from Tourism Economics, and I don't normally start out with takeaways. Usually it's at the end of this presentation, but I thought I would share some of their takeaways, and I've robbed a few of their slides, so forgive me, the first couple slides are theirs, but I think they're relevant to what's going on right now. And again, these folks are experts and considered to be the people to listen to when they put out tourism updates. And so this presentation was called The Outlook for Travel as Challenges Mount. And it was interesting to me because they're usually pretty optimistic. And I'm not saying they're not being optimistic, but they did share some things that were a little bit more bearish rather than bullish like they have been more recently. So I thought I would share some of their takeaways, a few of these, and then talk about some of the things that we're seeing, and maybe potentially some of the opportunities that we see because of that. And of course, always remember that we know that Miami does not usually follow the beat of the same drum as we see on a national level, which is great. But at the same time, we also know that we need to be aware of what's going on at a national level. So they mentioned a few things here. I'll just read a few things off. On the domestic side, from domestic and from a leisure and business perspective, they talk about the softening of pent-up demand. There has been a lot of travel demand, but they are saying they do see some signs of softening. As we well know, the economy is hitting some challenges here in terms of interest rates and inflation and those types of things that we like to talk about every month, as well as the softening labor market. They talk about domestic business where there are declines in corporate profits. There's maybe not as much investment. Maybe businesses are maybe a little remiss to send people out to meetings and conventions. So those are challenges we see. As long with the international front, most of the stuff is not really, shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, but these are their findings in terms of prolonged visa wait times, exchange rates, and then of course their own economic issues around the world. However, they do see some potential upsides, and they see where, and we'll talk about this in a moment, but people have the opportunity to prioritize travel given the way they're spending money right now. Let's put it that way. We also happen to see some opportunity, which I think translates into Miami in terms of the upper income market. And why do we say that? Well, because the lower and middle income families here in the United States are having a harder time than the people who are in the upper income brackets in terms of making ends meet. But we know that Miami is not a cheap destination. And generally speaking, our visitors are usually of the upper incomes. They're not generally speaking the lower income. So we know that people who have upper incomes are less affected. So I take that to be good news for us, of course. So there could be some opportunity there. We also point out there that in the last year, we had a very big outbound surge of Americans traveling overseas. It was really big. I want to say around 14%. That number sticks in my head. 14% increase, that is, of people year over year leaving the United States to go travel somewhere else. So what we're seeing here is a little bit of reversal. So that may wind up being a good thing for us as people may stop traveling abroad and start looking at destinations in the United States. I've shared some of these before, and I'm not going to go too granular on this. This comes from tourism economics again. But on the left-hand side here was a chart that they shared. I've shared this a couple of times, actually, but this is an updated one. When they talk about real consumer spending, they index this to what it was at the start of the pandemic to show what the recovery looks like when the pandemic first hit. And so we see a couple of categories here from the left in those colors. The red is durable goods, the yellow is non-durable, and then those blue are services. And they represent what the spending mix looked like when the pandemic hit and what it has been since then. So we saw a very big uptick in goods when when the pandemic first hit. People were home and they were buying their televisions and Pelotons, as I've said a few times on this call. But what we didn't see at that time were people spending money on services, of which travel is a service. So they were curbing their pocketbooks, and when they opened their wallets, they were putting the money out on goods. And so what happened during pandemic, and as the pandemic progressed and started to recover, we saw that services also recovered, and that was really good for us because that means that travel started to make a comeback. People started opening their wallets up and saying we're gonna spend more on travel. And what we see is that line, that blue line, is actually still relatively low, meaning or suggesting that people still have a means to travel and it is still a part of their pattern of spending. So that's great. However, on the right-hand side, consumer credit, this is a percent change year over year with consumer credit for the last several years. And what do we see? We see that there's an awful lot of change going on here. People have really dug themselves in more recently when it comes to debt. And we'll talk about that in a moment. So that is essentially a challenge for everybody in that when we look at travel and disposable income, well, people need money. And so when they start to get themselves all trapped up in their credit cards and so forth, it becomes more difficult for them to take a trip. This slide, again, comes from tourism economics. And so I stole their bullet points, and I'll mention them in a moment. They said, hey, the industry enters 2024. They mentioned three challenges. They said the slowing economy, the weakening economy, and they talked about international headwinds. Again, not surprising here. But their bullet points were interesting. They talked about the labor market that they say remains strong and unemployment remains historically low, but the job market is softening. I will add to that's a little dubious in my opinion, only because there's a lot of measures out there that aren't really agreeing. There's a number of different ways in which employment is measured. There's ADP, and then there's the BLS, and they actually don't agree with each other, and they're actually going the opposite way. So not only that, the jobs that we've seen created over the last year have actually not really been full-time jobs. They've been mostly part-time jobs. So, and if you're a person that got a part-time job, you have two part-time jobs, or you have a full-time job and a part-time job, you are counted twice. So essentially, if people are getting more and more part-time jobs, it may look like we're adding jobs to the economy, but in actuality, you're just being double counted. So that's not necessarily a good thing. We also know that workers are losing some confidence. People are starting to feel a little uneasy. That's actually nothing new. Interest rates, as we know, are leaving their mark. The economy, and then the GDP. And I thought this was a great thing to share with you folks. They shared the GDP for the last couple of years. And check this. So interestingly enough, they shared through the end of last year and then what they project for this year. So we did see quite a bit of activity last year. A lot of it, which we talked about in the past, that was actually bolstered more by government spending than anything else. And what they are projecting is not really a great picture in terms of a GDP for this year, with starting out at a 1.9% increase, going all the way down to, they say, just under a percent. And that's not very strong. So I'm hoping that maybe they're wrong, but we also know at the same time that economically, we do need to slow things down in order to curb inflation. And they talked about GDP as a predictor in terms of hotel room demand. And to the left there, you see that line chart there, which is an index versus 2019. There's a dark blue line, there's a light blue line. The dark blue line represents the GDP, and then that light blue line represents the room demand. And what you see is that they follow very, very closely for a long period of time, but then they diverge at the start of the pandemic. But as they come back together, they are still not back together. And that leads you to the right-hand chart that shows that they are saying that based on that relationship, that they do not expect to see great travel demand this year on a national scale. So this is just what they put together. You can take it for what it is, or a grain of salt, or it's interesting stuff. You decide how you want to take it, but they are saying, based on what they have always seen, that the room demand will not be as strong this year on a national level as has been. So they didn't mention inflation. So I put this together. I said, well, what about inflation? So to the left, I think it sort of sums things up. Is inflation affecting your family? Well, you could decide. I think inflation also affected that whole split there. And to the bottom left here is this nice woman says, inflation at 40-year high. Looking at my boss as she gives me a 0.25% raise. And it just reminded me of the company that I worked for prior to coming to the Bureau. Every year you would get your employee review, but you also got your raise. And you knew it was always going to be 3%. The cost of living. It's always 3%. It wasn't 2%. It wasn't 4%. It was always 3%. And I always loved how every year I get my review and they say, great job, great job. And they say, congratulations, you're getting a 3% raise. And it's like, hey, and it wasn't really very exciting, right? So that was my face, I guess, when they told me that I got a 3% raise. So that said, to the right, we talk about inflation and the growth of wages. We know that and we have seen that those two metrics are not really keeping up. And that's actually just the way it is. When you have inflation in the economy, the growth of wages is not going to follow nearly as fast. And we can see that in the chart there. When we look at the dark blue line represents wages and the light blue represents the GDP. And so what we see here is that they shot up extremely high, and then they've started to even off, or wages have actually picked up, as you can see to the right there, but they are still not picking up at the rate that they should in order to keep up with inflation. So that just simply means that it's going to take time, or who knows, inflation continues to be an issue. How much of an issue? Well, I charted this out. I keep hearing people saying prices are going down. Well, are they going up or going down? Well, let's take a look at this. Inflation remains sticky. What does that mean? Well, that's an economic term, essentially saying that inflation sticks around and it doesn't really want to go down. And so we've seen a lot of that. And that top chart represents what the percent change is year over year in terms of the rate of inflation. And you can see that in June 2022, we hit a high of 9.1. If you go all the way down, all the way over to the right, in December of last year, we were down to 3.4%. But something, as I put this together, I thought was interesting, I would point out, is if you look at that first set of lines there, starting in June to December 2022. And you look at that line, I put that red line represents the decrease in the rate of inflation, going down from 9.1% down to 6.5%. But when you take the following year, starting in June of 23 to the end, as a comparison, you see that while things have gone down in terms of the rate of inflation, so they've reversed in a sense, right? And so I actually didn't realize that until I put this together. Said, wait a second here. There's not really going down. They're sort of just hovering, bumping up and down, but they should be going down and they're not. The Fed has targeted 2%. I don't know if that will be realistic or not. I think that given what they're doing right now, they've talked about potentially doing some rate cuts, but I don't know that they'll do that, because when they do that, they're basically going to be speeding up spending again, and you're going to see a higher percent change in inflation. So that's really one issue that I would see. Not only that, but the government is spending so much right now. Essentially, we're actually printing about $2 trillion a year in deficit. So that deficit spending is also contributing to this inflation. And then when you see that bottom table there, we see that, and what I've shown here are, okay, well, are the prices going up or down? So these are percent changes month over month to say, hey, are they going up or down? And red means they are going up, green means they're going down. And I'm not going to go through every one of these, but essentially here, the only prices that have really been going down are energy. And you can see their energy has started to creep down. Fuel oil, it's for the most part, has been the one that's really driven that. But you've seen just about every other category, they're not. They're not going down. They're going the other way. This article I like too from New York Federal Reserve. It was printed back about a week ago. It talked about credit card auto loan delinquencies are rising, and notably along younger borrowers, as they say here. And I just simply bolded a few things here that credit card and auto loan transitions and delinquency are rising above pre-pandemic levels, and this is, of course, increasing financial stress, especially along younger and lower income households. And I point that out just for our own knowledge, but also, as I mentioned earlier, that they may not affect them as much, may not affect us as much as other markets, given the fact that we are not as dependent upon lower income households for tourism. And they just talk about more here that delinquency has increased for all debt types, actually, except for student loans. And if you look across here to the right, you see that that debt balance is higher. It's higher actually than it's ever been. Jumping into some tourism metrics. And by the way, I see some things in the chat here. I can try to answer those things at the end of this presentation since there's so much. But I'll show you here some tourism metrics that we usually share. Looking at Miami International air arrivals, the airport was really busy last year, and we know that. And there was an awful lot of growth, particularly international rebounding at almost 10% increase year over year. Domestic was flat. It was actually down almost 1%, but that's not really a bad thing because domestic's been so strong. Overall, we were still up almost 4%. I'm looking at Port Miami through November. Again, massive increase, record amounts of passengers going through our cruise port. Then down the hotel, where we saw that occupancy was maybe bumping just a little bit down. A lot of that was inventory driven. We added some inventory because actually, from a demand perspective, we were good. We were flat, just a little bit above. ADRs, as we know, have not been as strong, and that's not a surprise to anybody. And so, as a result, we see that our RevPAR was down almost 7%. And then down to short-term rentals. And I think the thing about short-term rentals this last year is that they've actually become a little bit more popular. I hate to say that when you're a hotelier. We hate to say that. We try to stay away from that, the short-term rental discussion. But the truth be told, while their occupancy was down this last year, actually, that is because they have increased their number of rooms drastically. If you look down at the bottom there, those last two lines, the available rooms within units, what they call capacity, is up 22%, and then the property is actually up 17%. So clearly, there's been a little bit more interest, or I should say quite a bit more interest in terms of short-term rentals. Looking at spending, we look at Visa card spend. I wanted to point out here the international spending, again, was up almost 14%, which probably represents about our percent change in our overall international visitors. So nothing really points anything out there, but domestic visitors, and I've shared some of this before, and this is full year, domestic visitor spend was down on their Visa cards. Overall, just about 1% up. And then down there at the bottom, real quickly, I just shared some gross hotel revenue. Look at some of our taxes. Hotel revenue on a gross room revenue was down a little bit, but that short-term room rental revenue was up, as I mentioned before. Some of the other tourist taxes were up and down. Most notably, I'll say that food and beverage actually did very well this last year, seeing healthy increases from the hotel food and beverage, as well as just the general Miami-Dade County food and beverage. Taking a peek here at Miami-Dade hotels by class, I like to show this because it illustrates where there could be some divide in terms of where people are staying. And so what we saw here, I'm sharing here, and I'm just going to go into the bottom left there, that table there, it's a little easier. I'm showing occupancy for December of last year, as well as January to December. And then across the top there, you'll see that Miami-Dade County, and then the different scales starting at the top from luxury, upscale, mid-price, economy, and budget. So December was a very strong month, really across the board. We saw solid increases in occupancy and some improvement even in ADR. On a year perspective, we saw the occupancy was down in just about every single category except for the mid-price. So, however, that's not really a bad thing because actually, if you jump down to the bottom, sorry to jump around a little bit, we see that actually the rooms sold, the demand was high actually for the year in almost every single category except for budget, which was slightly down. So really, that occupancy again, the decrease in occupancy came from adding inventory into those particular scales. ADR even on and it was as I mentioned in December was relatively positive, but we saw the biggest drops in luxury and upscale, and you can see that. And again, I think that points out to something that could very well be happening. And I mentioned this before, and I'll say it again. It looks like that potentially that our travelers are trading down when it comes to looking at accommodations. They may not be as eager to stay in some of the upper scale properties because of the higher ADRs, and they may be choosing these lower scales. And so, whether that's true or not, I can just show you the data, and you can make those decisions for yourself. Looking at the last 28 days of hotel performance for us and occupancy, ADR, RevPAR, as well as our neighbors to the north and south, it's actually a really strong 28 days. I will say that. If we look at the first column to our left, Miami-Dade County, and then our different areas of Miami-Dade County, our occupancy has been really strong. Miami-Dade County was up just over 4% at 80.7% in the last 28 days. And you can see it all the way down, very, very, very strong. The only area, Surfside Ball Harbor was flat. But looking over to the next column, ADR was also a good story. We were also very strong for the first 28 days, or last 28 days, I should say, and resulting in some very positive RevPARs. And what's interesting to point out there is you look at the bottom, Broward, who usually follows our trend all the time, they actually were in the red. So they certainly did not do as well as we did. Florida Keys saw a little bit of bump downwards in terms of their occupancy, but they've still been very popular. They've still had some very high rates, so their rates are up almost 3%. I don't usually share this, but I thought I would share this because sometimes this is really informative. What I do is I look at the number of rooms sold. I look at first Florida, because I look at Florida like this great big pie, and then we look at the various areas of Florida, and you can know that the actual share, when we look at demand by area, that share is usually very consistent. And so part of that is because of the inventory, the number of visitors going to those areas. But also at the same time, when we see percent changes up or down in terms of our market, I like to look at other areas around the state because they are really our competitors right now and say, hey, who's growing their share over the last 28 days and who has lost share. And so the good news here is what it looks like. It's Miami-Dade County among the top markets in Florida that actually gained some share, while we have some losers down there, including Fort Lauderdale. Sorry, I hope nobody here is from Fort Lauderdale, but we do see that Miami-Dade County has done very well, and Orlando's actually done really well. And then to the right, we have the top 25 hotel markets, and you see that once again, now that's out of the top 25 hotel markets, looking at demand share, we've actually been able to eke out a little bit of an increase as well. So some people were more fortunate than others, but really what this is telling me is that Miami has been a very strong destination for the last 28 days. Looking ahead, which is again one of my favorite things here, reserved occupancy. And then we see here that reserved occupancy is it's in pretty good shape. It's holding up from what we've seen the last several months. We are generally speaking trending far or better of reserved occupancy than we were a year ago. The only exception maybe July, just down a hair. But I will point out there, October, look at October. Now, I don't know, there could be something going on in October. I can't remember. I think we talked about something a couple of months ago. It's going on in October. And I don't know if this is a reason why, but it's quite possible. We're going to be looking at that. But that's a really healthy bump. We did not expect to see that. So maybe something going on in October. And looking ahead, this forecast, I mentioned this came in over the weekend, so you're the first folks to see it. STR is actually giving us a forecast and raised upwards. And they are saying that we are bucking that trend that they were talking about, that Tourism Economics is talking about. They are saying that this year should actually be a pretty good year. Q1 being a little bit more soft on ADR, but really. But otherwise, everything else they're saying is going to be on par or better. So I want to share that. That's a very positive. It's a very positive story, and certainly not what everybody else in the country is seeing. I certainly hope that we can hold to these numbers for the future. And then a few more slides here. I'm almost done. Some hotel pipeline stuff. Some of you hoteliers asked me this question, so I thought I would share this with you. We do see 8 properties coming online this year with just over 1,100 rooms. And I've mentioned those markets at the top. Not going to read everyone off, but we have some exciting properties coming up. Moxie and Miami Wynwood coming up in April, Citizen M in South Beach in July, and the Thompson South Beach, a luxury property opening up in September. So lots of good things. We do see a lot of hotel there, inventory that's on the horizon that is coming into play. Next year, 16 properties, and 2026 plus, easily 24 or more. My findings here. So tourism experts are becoming more bearish. They've mentioned, and we've mentioned that slowing economies, wages slowly increasing, but inflation still taking a bite out of our income. Our tourism metrics have been positive. However, we know that domestic spending has receded, not nearly as exciting, and some of this may be translating into more discounts, changing down our properties, and potentially going to Airbnbs. January was a strong month for Miami-Dade hotels. And I want to mention this year's hotel resort occupancy, as I mentioned, looks upbeat. October looks very interesting. And I hear that Miguel will giving out 2 Taylor Swift tickets during March's SFCA call. So definitely show up next month for the tickets.
Yeah, okay. That was good. Yeah, I'm paying attention. No, that's not happening.
Okay, good. I'm glad you're paying attention. And so, as I mentioned, the latest hotel performance, like I just mentioned, is looking very optimistic. So we are hoping that we will stay on that trend trajectory and say we should meet or exceed. Next. And I'll stop sharing.
Amazing. Thank you very much. We did have a question from Randall, and his question was, the F&B tax on hotel food and beverage, is it for the county and all restaurants, including hotels? He's not sure.
It's the county less Miami Beach, and I believe Surfside Bal Harbor. I'd have to check on those two, but certainly it's not Miami Beach because Miami Beach collects theirs separately, but on a county level for the most part.
Okay. Some compliments. Thank you very much for the presentation. Yes, Georgia, we will be sending the presentation in the post show notes in a low-res PDF file so you can utilize it with your staff. Thank you very much, Andrew. Also, October is Swiftie month. Probably that's the effect that you're getting, because he's become an anomaly in the entire industry. It's almost like a Super Bowl, literally almost like a Super Bowl. Airlines, hotels, Uber, taxis, car rentals, everything goes through the roof. It's crazy.
And I don't even know if we see that type of a bump from Super Bowl. I'd have to go back and take a look and see, you know, if we see that type of a bump this far out. I mean, it's October, it's only February, and we're seeing quite a bit of activity for October, and it's very likely to Taylor Swift and some other things going on too, but amazing for sure.
Crazy, crazy, crazy. Ceci, you have a question?
Sure. Well, kind of a comment. So I do get the City of Miami Beach Resort tax report monthly. So if you'd like that, I can send that to Miguel. I can send it to you ongoing, or I can make sure that you get it from the city when they send it out monthly, and then you can share it with everybody.
Sure.
Thank you. I actually do get it too, but thank you. You send it over to me, and usually they might be a little bit slow to send to me, but I do get it. And there is a line in my presentation here that mentioned that we are starting to improve in that front too.
I have people, the minute I mean, if I don't send it out that same day that I get it, just like almost Andrew's presentation, they start asking me for it because they do use it for forecasting.
It's great. It's great.
Cool. When does it come out?
It's once a month. It comes from the city around the 8, 9, 10, right? It's not for the preceding month. It's for the month before that. It takes them about a month to get all of that in,
Right.
And then, condense it. So let's see, January's will be coming out the beginning of March.
Got it. Perfect. All right, Andrew, you have a trivia question, either based on your presentation or in general?
Yeah, I do. And actually, I just see one question that we didn't answer. Any metric for the performing arts in South Florida? I don't have anything right now, but thank you for bringing that up. I might try to find something to share next month for you.
Thank you,
That's all I can
Terrence.
say.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else?
Okay.
No, it looks like, okay, so
Anybody?
your trivia question, go ahead.
Well, hope you're paying attention. I mentioned the inflation chart, and don't answer this yet because it's actually a two-part question. I mentioned the rate of inflation going on for the last couple of years. What was December's and what was the highest point in the last 3 years? You can give me those two numbers, then you win.
Wow.
It's a tougher one, I know.
3.4, 9.7, 6.5, 9.1, 3.49. You see it?
I see it.
Let me know.
Yes.
Where is it?
It's 9.1 and 3.4.
9.1 and 3.4. Where was it?
It's like
There we go.
9.1.
Courtney Howe from the Satai, numbers girl. Good.
Wow.
Congratulations,
Sharp.
Courtney. You win once again. You know, Courtney's not she's not a one-time winner. She pays, she does her homework. She pays attention. She's won a couple of times. Congratulations, Courtney. We'll reach out to you for your $50 gas card. And Andrew, thank you very much. Now, question for you. Do you think that the geopolitics have something to do with all this tourism? I know on the luxury side, I have some people that work in the FBO, flight-based operations for all the private jets, and they're noticing a decrease in the private jet traffic coming into Opa-locka, Signature, and Fontainebleau Aviation. So I'm curious to see if, because of what's happening in the Middle East, has some bearing on the travel industry overall, and also that it's an election year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't point to any of those things as being an issue. It's funny. My boss, Rolando, is actually over there right now. For a trip. I might ask him some questions when he comes back. But I think part of the reason we're seeing some of that international is simply because we have a lot of competition going on right now. After several years of people being not able to travel, and you have this air service that's been established, we could very well be seeing where we are continually dealing with a lot of competition on an international scale. That would be my best guess.
Got it. Okay, well, thank you. And now we have Ceci. You have some documents you want to share with us?
Well, sure. First of all, let me share my screen.
Sure. Thank you, Andrew. Great presentation, by the way, as always. And we'll share Edwin's and Andrew's and Curb's information.
So Miguel asked me to talk a little bit about spring break and all those measures, which may be a little negative and kind of a downer. But so I first wanted to really jump on the Hampton House presentation and say that on Ocean Drive through the Promenade series, we have been celebrating Black History Month in such a beautiful way. Yesterday was Danny Mixon Trio. And here, just to let you know, we have scheduled for the entire year 52 Sundays. So it is the sweetest little gem of a music series. It is right in the middle of the park. I know I talk about it, but it's just such a sweet thing right in the middle of the park on the north side of Lummis Park. People come, we have tables, we have chairs, we have people come with their blankets, with their picnics. It's really, really sweet. If there's a threat of rain, or if it rains, we go inside into the lobby of the Betsy, which we did yesterday. It didn't rain, but it threatened to, and just a little bit of rain. We have all the sound equipment, right, that we have to protect, and we have to protect the musicians from getting electrocuted. So we came inside. But Danny Mixon is legendary. He came down from New York, and he's part of the Overture to Overtown celebration. He played last night and literally blew the roof off the building. It was so beautiful. And it's such an opportunity because some of these names and some of these groups are Grammy Award winning, world renowned. We celebrate Black History Month with the Afrobeats All-Stars and also with the Danny Mixon Trio, but we celebrate culture, race, universally through music throughout the entire year, because music is really the universal embracer of people and humanity. So this is why we do that. I'm going to send this out and share this. I'll send this to Miguel and he can send it out. The South Florida Concierge Association has been really sweet about sharing our posts to get it out there. We usually get about 150 to 200 people. It is changing the dynamic of how people feel about Ocean Drive. So the whole idea is urban placemaking, but definitely you don't have to think about it. If you want to send somebody to a beautiful, sweet little concert on Sundays, every single Sunday we're going to be there on Ocean Drive, and every single Sunday it's a really beautiful experience. We do get the New World Symphony, Cortadito. I'm going to send this to you. It's really, really something special. If I didn't have to produce it, I would be there anyway. So I will talk about, oh shoot, I have to change this tab. I will talk about spring break. Hold on a second. Let me see how I can do that. I'm going to change the tab. Tomorrow, here it is. Tomorrow there is, hold on a second. I'm so sorry. Tomorrow there's a meeting with the Hotel Association. Here we go. Okay, tomorrow there is a meeting with the Hotel Association at 12:30 at the Lowe's. So if you're part of the hotel or a restaurant that will be impacted by spring break, please, even if you're general public, please attend this meeting. A safety symposium at 12:30. If you're interested in the traffic plan, the policing plan, etc., you're more than welcome to attend at the Lowe's. I'll go through this quickly. This is really the city had a webinar a couple of days ago, and these are their slides. There will be an influx of visitors. They're doing things a little bit differently. There's no activations this year at all. There is going to be an impact on city staffing and the quality of life of residents and business community. They're really focusing on that. There's an attempt to alleviate some of the challenges that they're faced with implementing several high impact and public safety measures during these times. Here's the plan during the month of March. The entire month is going to be a high impact period for Miami Beach. Critical focus is on the weekends of March 7th and 10th and March 14th and 17th. Please focus on the visitors, but also if you're trying to get to work, it will affect our staffs. So please think about how you're going to deal with coming to work and where you're going to park, etc. It is citywide high impact measures. They're going to be what I'm going to talk about briefly right now is parking and towing, traffic impact, sidewalk cafes, beach access, enhanced city staffing, and then there's question and answers. You can get this from the city. I'm going to flip it through really quick. I didn't realize we were already at 11 o'clock. So if we have about 5 minutes, I'm going to go through this. Is that okay, Miguel?
It's a little tight, but go ahead.
5 minutes, just to let you know. A lot. Flat rate parking is $30 in garages and on surface lots. That's municipal parking. Okay. Towing rates are going to be, it says non-resident towing rates are going to be doubled. So it'll be about $500 non-resident rates. The parking fees are going from $36 to twice that, $72. So be careful of parking. It will be restricted. Traffic impacts. There's going to be a traffic plan beginning at 6 p.m. to reduce traffic impacts around South Beach. That means that you need to be anticipating how you're going to get on and off South Beach. There's going to be sidewalk cafes will have some closures. So the barricades are going to line Ocean Drive. The barricades are going to be out there for most of our MXE district. And there will be some sidewalk cafes that will be closed on those 2 weekends on Ocean Drive. The restaurants themselves on the terraces and indoors will be opened. It's on the public sidewalk, which they'll be closed. This is to alleviate some of the congestion. So there's not so much of a condensation of people and concentration of people on the small portion of 5-foot sidewalk. They're going to open the sidewalks a little bit. Police feel that that's going to help them quite a bit. They're going to have enhanced city staffing. We're going to have quite a bit of city staffing. You'll see they're going to be Goodwood ambassadors. We have a lot of people coming in to help with our traffic issues and our policing issues. That's really what I have. I'm going to send this to Miguel and he can send it out to everybody. I don't have a lot of question and answers. I'm keeping it down to my 5 minutes. As I said, I've got it down to 3 minutes. I do have a question. You want my question?
Yeah, one question from Kerr about what time are the concerts for Loomis Park?
Our Loomis Park concerts are right now, they're at twilight, which means right now they're at 5 o'clock. But as it starts getting darker later, we'll move it to 6 o'clock, probably May and June, and they're for an hour and a half.
Because March time changes, no? Yeah, March.
We usually change right about May.
May? Okay.
Yeah,
perfect.
It just gets
right.
too hot, so we move it down lower. Yeah.
All right, cool. What is your question?
Who played last night and blew the roof off of the Betsy?
All right, let's see if anybody got it.
I know it was earlier in my presentation, so I hope somebody remembers.
They're quiet.
Oh, I'm going to stop sharing.
Afrobeats?
No, that was the week before.
With Danny?
Danny Mixon, legendary Danny Mixon trio.
Hilda,
It was
congratulations,
fantastic.
Hilda.
Standing
Great.
ovation. It was nice.
Excellent. Excellent. So, Hilda, you've got the gas card. Please reach out to me so we can get it to you. Congratulations to the three, Jacob, Courtney, and Hilda. Real quick, thank you very much for you staying on the call. We went just a tad bit over. Thank you for all the information, Ceci, as well as Kurt and Edwin. Thank you very much. Appreciate all your information. Parting message from the late great Maya Angelou, Arthur poet and civil rights activist. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Have an amazing and memorable Valentine's Day. If you go to restaurants, God bless you. If you don't, good for you. Definitely patronize the restaurants. Just don't do it on Valentine's Day, in my opinion. Have a great Valentine's Day. Again, all you need is love. God bless everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Our goal is to inspire travel. We want to expose you to what Miami and South Florida has to offer. From Key Biscayne to Coconut Grove, South Beach to Calle Ocho, and everywhere in between. Miami is a vibrant city and offers a wide array of popular attractions and venues. Come join us.